So, welcome to another edition of the Elegantly Raw Tidbits. I'm your host, Dorit. So, today I'm looking at something which has really, I've been centering on for a long time, a long, long time. It's about how what we are told, our five senses, that we have them limit us. And because we focus only on one or two at a time, in my opinion, we only focus on a few of them at a time instead of developing all five of them. So, why do I say that? Because I know this for sure in working with myself and with clients. If we developed all our five senses around food, we would never have the illnesses and diseases we have, and we would never make the choices that we make for non-food substances rather than food, real food. So that I know for sure. So what are these five senses? Let's have a look at them. So you can see here our five senses: sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch. All of these five senses are underdeveloped in most of us, especially when it comes to food, especially around food. So it's interesting because if we look at these five senses and we start applying them to food, think about what you ate last and which of these senses were most utilized in that. So if you were to have a durian, for example, your sense of smell would be very utilized. If you've never eaten a durian, then let me explain to you about the smell, the odor, the fragrance. The first word that comes to most people's mind is stinky, but the taste, first word that comes to most people's mind is incredibly delicious. So, if you've never eaten a durian, I'm warning you that one sense of smell will probably stop you from enjoying the durian, which actually, when you cultivate a taste for the durian, brings out all the other smells, especially the sense of taste and texture of touch. So it all depends on what it is. If you're eating this, then you know for yourself that here you have the sense of smell and also of sight is pretty strong. So everything that we either eat with our sense of smell, which most people do, by the way, but many people do not eat with their other senses. So banana has a different texture, for example, than would a durian. Although some people say that there's some connection too. But it doesn't really matter whether you feel that there's a connection or not. What's important actually is that you're eating with mainly with two senses. Most people eat only with a sense of smell and of taste. Some people do, yes, use the sense of touch, the texture when it comes in the mouth and on the tongue, and the tongue is very sensitive, and the roof of the mouth. So some people do use those three, but most people do not use their sense of hearing when it comes to food. In fact, very few people do. So if you are raw vegan or vegetarian, you love this crunch and the sound of your food, then you do. So a lot of people will eat according to their sense of sight, but it's not because the sight of it excites them or allows their saliva to suddenly start being flowing really easily, but because they're used to it. Like a sense, they see a hamburger and they're conditioned to wanting to eat that. That's not really using your sense of sight. So, my question to you today is it possible to look but not see? Is it possible to listen but not hear? Yes, absolutely. Most of us, in fact, listen, but we do not hear what's being said or told. Most of us look, but we do not see what's in plain sight. So our senses limit us. And unfortunately, we have been told to rely on our senses. But what if we had more senses than that? What about our sense of temperature, our sense of balance? Those usually do take part in some of the decisions that we make, those influence the decisions that we make, but we rely too much on only a few senses rather than developing the rest of them. And what if there are more than those? And even the limited way that we use our senses or that they've been developed shows us that we have a long way to go. For example, animals often will smell things we don't smell, will hear things we do not hear. So our senses of vision, hearing, touch, smell, taste, temperature balance, and then we have that sixth sense that some of us know about and some of us do not, are all very limited. But what about the senses of electrical fields and magnetism? People who've been breatharians or who have been raw vegan or vegetarian for a long time are very aware of these senses of electrical fields and magnetism. And some people who are not also raw vegans or vegetarians have also been aware of that and have developed those as well. But even they are so limited that we can't notice most of the time. So, for example, let's look now at our vision. Most of us can only see a range of colors, and then there's certain people we call colorblind. But we're also colorblind. We're all colorblind because there's a whole range of colors that we do not see. Also, we need the light on. We need enough light on to be able to enough to see things. So we need brightness of light in order to see things. So we're very limited. There's I don't know if you've heard of Kahneman, Kahneman, who theorizes that we rely on system one, what writer Malcolm Gladwell in his book Blink calls intuition. There's also that as well. What about our intuition? How much do you use your intuition to make decisions? We make decisions all day long, but how much are you using your actual intuition to make those decisions? Think about that. You know, because we have limited vision and animals can see other things we cannot, it limits our perception of the world. It limits our perception of ourselves, and it limits our perception of ourselves in the world. So the visible spectrum is certainly the one that's most now known about the limit of our senses, that we have a very short spectrum of colors and things that we can see. So the human eye recognizes the light with a wavelength between 390 and 750 nanometers. At the same time, most animals are able to perceive light at other wavelengths, which we cannot. So can you see that we really do not live in reality? We think we do, we pretend we do, and then we issue edicts and mandates and all these things telling people what to do, when to do, how to do it, and we become very programmed, which limits us even more. So today, I invite you to start focusing on whether or not the different senses that you've developed are serving you well enough, and if you need to actually focus on developing them stronger or balance them out by upgrading your focus on other senses and getting a balance between them all. Because this is the perfect analogy of how most of us live our lives. We use our five senses to limit our belief systems, and we use our five senses and our limiting belief systems to steer us through the world. No wonder most of us have so much angst and anxiety, and some of us are so dejected and frustrated. And we use these limiting belief systems and these limiting senses to focus only on what's right in front of us. For example, our to-do lists, or flaws, or fears, etc. But meanwhile, there's a whole universe soaring above, below, beside, and around us, and especially in us, that we've never, ever explored. Some people have. Some people meditate and they even do other things like breatharianism, and they also levitate, and they have a whole different perspective than we do, but we laugh at them. Think about it. If I start talking about magnetism and about electrical frequencies of food, sometimes people laugh at me. That's just because they have not been they've not been deprogrammed enough and then allowed to develop their own senses to be able to experience that. Some people do astral travel, and some people think, oh, poppycock. But it's because you're limiting yourself according to the limited version of your own senses and of your own self. So I invite you today to stop limiting yourself and expand your version of yourself. Really look and see all the ways in which you can expand yourself today and tomorrow and the day after, and more and more and more as you go through life, because there's a whole magical world awaiting for you. And I so look forward to meeting you there. Thanks for being here. Please click the thumbs up button if this has at all piqued your interest. Please comment below if you have something on this topic that you'd like to share, because I'd love to hear from you. And also, please click the notification, the subscribe button for more of these elegantly raw tidbits every weekday, same time on these platforms. Thank you very much.